Jeremy Corbell was recently on Fox News to talk about what else UFOs. Of course, Corbell is the filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and ufologist who has a great interest in UFOs, and he's the one who's been releasing a lot of videos over the past year or so that show some interactions with our military and UFOs. And anyway, he was on recently, and it was presented to him that there's a lot of sightings recently, and one of the sightings they were talking about was a sighting that happened in Chino Hills, California, where there were a bunch of lights moving out up in the clouds. And I'll talk about that in a minute, what I think about that. And Corbell said, here's the problem, is that UFO sightings have increased both from our military and our military is reporting them, as well as civilians. I get videos every day since our government admitted that UFOs are real, and they fly with impunity in our restricted airspace. Corbell pointed out that over the past 6 months, he's been obtaining and releasing military footage of UFOs that the Pentagon has confirmed to be authentic. And here's a direct quote from him. He says, "You're going to see more and more of this because our own military has told us there's been an increase in frequency of sightings and encounters." So, and that's true. It seems that there have been more sightings, UFO sightings, over the past couple of years. You were hearing about it all the time. People are filming them with their phones. It's been really amazing what's been going on here. Anyway, he continues. He says, we don't know who's flying these craft. We don't know the intent of those operating these vehicles, and our government is taking it very seriously. And he was talking about the bill that Congress has just passed. Basically, the defense spending bill, it passed in the House and then the Senate, and now it just needs to be signed by President Biden, which is a certainty, as we've talked about before. And this new legislation will create a new UFO office that will analyze, study UFOs, try to figure out what they are, where they're coming from, who's operating them. And also, it will, as part of that office, there will be a program to try to reverse engineer any of this UFO technology that's either recovered or just by, trying to mimic what our military is seeing these objects do. Like, this bill is instructing this office to try to come up with methods to, duplicate that. Now, of course, as we've talked about many times before, I believe that the military, the Pentagon, has been engaged in reverse engineering, and not only reverse engineering, but they've been studying these UFOs for a long time, since at least the late 1940s, and I am also certain that they actually have recovered spacecraft, starting with Roswell, and I'm certain that there were other incidents after the Roswell incident, where they recovered different kind of craft. And I believe that some of these unidentified flying objects are most certainly controlled, by extraterrestrial beings. They're beings that do not hail from the planet Earth, that they are someplace else. And he went on to talk about these vehicles that, he said that they have propulsion systems that outperform anything that humanity has ever demonstrated in the theater of war or anywhere. And of course, Corbell is completely correct about this. They defy physics. These objects defy physics, which eliminates the possibility that this has been China or Russia or some other country, rival country out there that's been operating these things. There's just no way. I mean, this hasn't been just happening since 2010 or 2004, or this has been going on for decades, since the 40s. No human being on this planet, had the ability to build these kind of craft, this kind of technology. There's just no way. But and he goes on, he says, there's something going on here. There's a technology. Who is it? again, I believe it's extraterrestrials. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't want to accept that, but it's obvious. It's obvious. But anyway, regarding the Chino Hills, California, there was a recent sighting there. You could see. I'll leave links for all of these things, by the way, in the description for this interview with Corbell, and also the Chino Hills, California UFO sighting. And that was TMZ had something on about that. They're the ones who obtained the video, and they you could look at on TMZ's site, and I will send that link. I will include that link, and it looks like lights moving through the clouds in strange in a strange fashion. So circular lights moving around. I actually believe that this is not extraterrestrial, or I think that these are somebody. It's either a hoax, or it's something that was innocent, like somebody, like some place somewhere had spotlights shining up in the sky and are moving them around. And I say this because I have actually seen that before. I've seen that before. It was probably about 11 or 12 years ago. I had, it was not long after I moved back from Hawaii to Pennsylvania. And one night I saw these lights in the clouds in the sky, and it was I didn't know what was going on. And then the next day I found out that that there was some sort of a event going on where they had these spotlights in another town, miles away, with these spotlights shining up in the sky. I could be wrong. I'm not saying that that's what this is, but it looks similar. I mean, actually the objects in this video looks like a more of a spectacular show than what I saw that time, 11, 12 years ago. But I mean, it could be something. I don't know. I'm thinking that there's a possibility it's not. I think it's a possibility that it was actually either a hoax or something just innocent and was mistaken. But then again, that doesn't make me right. It could be extraterrestrial. I don't know. For all I know, each of those objects was some sort of those lights were coming from some solid crafts and each of them contained they were brimming to the hilt with gray aliens, hybrids, and reptilians and insectoids. I don't know, but I'm saying that I think it's more of a possibility that the Chino Hills incident was a hoax or just an innocent mistake. And then there was also, even more recently, there was a fleet of strange lights that were seen in the sky above Paterson, New Jersey. And I will leave a link for that so you can see that what that looked like. Now that looked more intriguing. I have no explanation for that. I don't know what to say. I mean, could it have been extraterrestrial? Possibly. I'm not sure. I need more information on it. But the video for that is very intriguing. And just keep in mind that there's a lot of the people who filmed this. There was it seemed like there was a bunch of people who were witness to this as it was on. Somebody was filming it with their camera. There was a lot of foul language getting tossed about there, so keep that in mind. You might not want to open up that video when you're at work or something. I think the most intriguing recent sighting was over the South China Sea, where in late November, where there was a pilot that filmed the strange lights that were moving above the clouds in broad daylight, and then they finally disappeared. I don't know how, that looked like, that looked otherworldly, unearthly. There's no explanation for it. Could that have been extraterrestrial? Most certainly. Of course it could have been. But again, we don't have the absolute proof to say that. But I think it was. And Corbell also made a statement that, since people have been talking about UFOs more and that the Pentagon has acknowledged that they're real, that more scientists, a majority of scientists across the globe are finally opening their eyes on this. I don't agree with that. I just don't agree with that at all. I don't think they are opening their eyes. I think a majority of them still have their eyes, cemented shut on this whole thing. I think most of these scientists are so captivated by their educations that they just don't have an open mind to the extraterrestrial hypothesis whatsoever, which is really strange, actually, when you think about it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, It's like Occam's razor. Your first inclination is probably the truth. I mean, it makes more sense. I mean, if you walk out of your house and it's a clear night and you look up in the sky and you see all those stars up there, I see billions of possibilities. And to just not consider these UFOs as potentially being extraterrestrial, and just ignoring that, and not even being interested in studying it, because that's what it seems like. A lot of them, they don't want to even look at it. They're more concerned about pointing their telescopes at distant planets or sending a probe to Mars and maybe finding some form of bacteria or a germ or something biological in the ground, or a fossil. They're more interested in trying to discover, trying to prove extraterrestrial existence in that way, rather than looking at what's right here, trying to figure out what's going on right here. How do you explain these craft? It seems like they're not interested. And case in point, there was an article that I was reading from Scientific American recently, and it was from a scientist, an astrophysicist. It was her name's Katie Mack, and it was from May 6th, 2020, and she was talking about the Pentagon videos, and she just, she doesn't believe it. I mean, she doesn't want to even, she's not concerned with it. I'll leave a link for this article here too, and you could see what I'm talking about. She writes here early on, it's not that I think they're actually aliens. It's not even that I think they're unexplainable, or that they're obviously some particular thing or other. And although science communication experts frequently debate the effectiveness of debunking as a strategy, that's not the source of my reluctance either. It's because for an astrophysicist like me, there's very little motivation to do it. You might be surprised at this. I'm a scientist. I want to know how things work. I am interested in mysteries, and this is a mystery about space, right? She says, basically, she starts off this article on the premise that she's not interested in debunking the Pentagon. She's not interested She's not even interested in debunking them. She doesn't even want to look at it. Right? And anyway, later on in this, let me get to this part that I really thought was interesting. She says, I don't think it's completely impossible that hyper-advanced aliens could come to visit us on Earth, being careful for some reason to first evade every sky monitoring system we have and leaving no observable trace other than the confusion of a handful of Navy pilots. Of course, she's talking about the Nimitz incident with David Fravor and the gang back in 2004 that saw the Tic Tac and were... so basically, she's saying that these things leave no observable trace other than the confusion of a handful of Navy pilots. But there has been traces. There's been thousands of different cases. In fact, there was a guy named Ted Phillips who went all over the world since the 70s, going to different places where UFOs have landed, and he did tests on the soil, like where there was grass that gets burned. I mean, there's all kinds of evidence of this. There is trace evidence. There's a lot of trace evidence. In 1964, the Lonnie Zamora incident in New Mexico, when he saw a UFO take off and there was indentations in the ground and there was scorching. There is evidence out there, but apparently these people don't know it. Anyway, she continues. I do think it's incredibly unlikely, and I think when starting with only a few grainy, hard-to-interpret videos, the jump to aliens is so extreme that it would take something much more compelling than what anyone has seen so far to get me to even begin to walk down that road. Even if I wanted to spend the time to dig up Navy aircraft camera manuals and work out the flight geometry, my reward would likely be a long and tedious debate with a dedicated audience spanning the spectrum from those who think UFOs are a fun idea to people dedicated to proving they're real. So, with apologies to those who would like me and my colleagues to leap into these waters, I think for now most of us will be sticking to space. There's a great big universe out there and a whole lot of worlds to choose from. Maybe one of them holds something amazing. I think that's great. Yeah, explore space. Do what you're doing with that. But you can't ignore what's going on here. If you're a scientist, you need to look at what's happening right here. There's something going on. I could tell you firsthand, I've seen one of these craft. I'm telling you right now, there is absolutely no chance in heaven or hell that this thing was manufactured by human beings. It did not operate like anything I've ever seen before. It made no sound. It was big. It was in the sky. It was right above my head and moved around in a way that just defies logic. So there's a lot of people out there. Not all of them are liars. But the scientific community just doesn't want to look at it. They don't even want to look at the stuff that the Navy's telling them, the Air Force and the Pentagon is telling them. Yeah, we have no explanation for this. They're more interested in just doing what they're doing, looking out into space. Most of them. So I don't agree with Corbell on that. I think they're still. I mean, you see big name guys. Bill Nye the Science Guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson. They always downplay it. No interest. So I just don't know what needs to happen to change the narrative here and to get some of these scientists to start getting a little bit more serious about this. Some of them are. Granted, some of them are. Some of them talk a good talk. I think Mikhail Kaku, the noted physicist, he's on there. He seems like he might believe in this, but what's he doing? Is he? I don't know. Is he doing any research into this? I don't even know. I might have just totally butchered the pronunciation of his name. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?